Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the League of Spiritual Gentlemen podcast. Today, I have a special guest with us, someone I met at the Midweek Men's Circle, joined by David Adams. David Adams is a career coach, storyteller, and advocate for the neurodivergent men, learning to navigate identity, growth, and transition. He is a career coach. Uh, what really stood about David's story is that he's always rocking the NFL gear and all of the every time he shows up to the meeting, which I always appreciate being an American living in Europe. Um, but his in depth, particularly around understanding self doubt, how ADHD works, how to utilize tools like AI to help master and create a better life using the tools around us. So I'm really excited to get to know you a bit more, David, hear a bit about your story, your ADHD journey, and really connect with you. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it. This is awesome.
And before we started here, we had a few technical difficulties, ADHD kind of moments of timing and everything else. But the one thing that I appreciate about you, David, is the fact that it's go with the flow of the understanding of like recognizing of like, hey, things are going to go wrong, and it's just like, all right, we go with it, we flow with it, we understand things are going to happen, and it's great to chat with you. So I'm really curious on kind of starting out with a bit of your kind of origin story. When were you diagnosed with ADHD? Was this something when you were as a kid? Was this adult later in life? Or was this something that like has kind of like for most of us it kind of follows us along? Was it an aha moment, or was this something when you were you found out as a child?
So my literal moment was as an adult. I'm 41 right now. I was 39 when I officially got diagnosed. And the irony is I have had a ton of signs along the way that I have attention issues, that I am different. But such was my background that, and as I'm sure we'll get more into, the hardest part for me was the self-acceptance piece. And it was not until I kind of lose track, but like my fourth burnout, I don't even know if burnout or crash out or bottom out is the right even word for it, but my fourth instance of my life being so misaligned and not being able to show up as myself and finally being forced to accept help at age 39 because the circumstances were just that dire. And that's my biggest thing about ADHD is I just feel like it's an identity disruptor. My biggest thing, um, kind of in labeling it is that when it's mismanaged, it prevents me from showing up as the David that I want to be. So I had a lot of signs of that, but it wasn't officially until age 39 that I was able to get until I was able to get the ADHD. So specifically, I am like an adult, figuring it out. And I was at the time, my wife and I had been married for 9 years. My daughter was 4.5. So I was also like midway through a lot of other big life things. So yeah.
What would you say? Because you mentioned like you had kind of noticed signs of now that when you look back, particularly in like maybe grade school, high school, and you also mentioned kind of like these kind of crash outs or burnouts, like these cycles that you went through. What were now as you look back, what were the kind of the signs or the things that you noticed that you kind of really struggled with that you couldn't maybe identify at the time, but you now can identify as ADHD?
When I was a kid, it's all kind of the same unrealized potential. And as a kid, that showed up as like I did well. Part of what's both a blessing and a curse for me is I'm very high functioning. I do well. Like I did great in, middle school, high school, college, all that stuff. I have my MBA. I did great. Like academics, I've always been able to be successful and it's structured enough for me, it works enough for me. And at the same time, there were always I always knew I was different. I always knew that. And the bummer for me is that as I bet a bunch of folks know, and as we all who have ADHD experience, by age 10, you have received about 20,000 more negative comments than your neurotypical peers. So, regardless of, your exact upbringing and everybody's circumstance, we all have in common that we have been told by the world that, your voice does not count as much in some way, shape, or form. And for me, that was always just like, I need to try harder. I got to be in the honors math class, in the honors this class. And again, I could do well. I'm high functioning. But the part that I wish that I had thought more about and that somebody had kind of called me on was like, well, how hard are you working to do all this? How much is it costing you? Because I can do great in school, but then that's going to cost me my friendships. That's going to cost me, I can't do um the executive function piece is so hard for me that I can't, it's literally costing me other parts of my life. So that's kind of the school piece of it. The adult piece has been I mean, again, school I feel like is so structured. Even if you struggle with it, I feel like that is a journey that you can complete if you just kind of like can at least show up enough. You can, do well enough. Um, I think one of the greatest disservices, and one of the reasons I'm glad to be both in workforce development and education, is I just think it is an incredible disservice to young people in general, and especially if you are a different learner. So if you're ADHD, if you're on the autism spectrum, or you know whatever in between, if you have both, it is so hard to go from the structure of high school or college or grad school and then just go get a job, figure it out. Hey, great, go pay bills and go, live seasonally in your life and don't have firm deadlines of like the semester's ever gonna, like um the lack of, structure then in adulthood really was hard for me. And what that looked like as an adult, I was a teacher for 11 years. Um, and I was always working harder than everybody else, but I did not want to show it. I really struggled. And it's funny too, because this is where the high functioning both helps me and hurts me. Um, I'm great at getting people to like me. I'm great at getting to like have shallow relationships, but like I don't want to have shallow relationships. I don't want to talk to you about the weather. I want to talk about how crazy it is that we've had a record number of 90-degree plus days. I want to talk to you about how there's a heat czar in Arizona. Like I don't want to do the normal conversations that I have to fit into every day, and the grading of that and the fitting of square peg into round hole that I was doing professionally really didn't work for me. And as a result, I felt like I did not like working with kids, and that was really wrong. Incorrect, I'll say. Because the feelings were valid, they were just misdirected. In reality, my feelings of frustration and being over it with teaching were really a result of the lack of risk, novelty, competition. I wasn't doing the stuff that my brain really needed. But I actually, in reality, I love working with kids. I love working with neurodivergent adults and kids, like, and I actually think I'm really uniquely good at working with both because of my experience as a teacher and administrator and this other stuff. When I when I realized that I just did not want to keep teaching, that was when I decided I should go to business school. Because of course, why should I make an easy change and like try to, let's go get another degree. Not to mention my undergrad is in math and which like was just moving the most boulders up the hill. But yeah, I went to business school. It was a great experience. And I'm so grateful that I did because it really opened, broadened my horizon so much. And at the same time, I won't call it a regret, but I will call it a realization, I guess. Um, I didn't have to do that. As somebody who's in career development now, I've done everything in my career the really hard way. And again, I've done well, but it's all been the really hard way. So just to kind of fast forward a little bit from like business school, I went on and I became what's called a school business administrator, which was like a great tangential thing. Um, Basically, you supervise like the building services. That's the team that keeps up with the building, the food services, all the financial services, which is actually like a huge, it may not sound huge. That is a really massive job. And that was the first time that my systems could not keep up with my professional life. Um, and what that looked like for me was working till 5 or 6 every night, and still not being, not like things are not in great shape. But they were. I had I'm the only business administrator who had perfect audits the entire time that I was there. Nobody else did that. Um, but again, there's the high cost. And also what really nagged at me was this sense of I've done all this stuff. I've done all this stuff. I got the MBA. I made the hard career move. I'm sitting in this office that I've worked so hard to be in, and I want to go do something different. And what what the hell is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You are a husband now. You're trying to be a dad. What's wrong with you? Like like I'm
Like
not being
this is the
hyperbolic
path you
about
have to
how,
take, and like you have achieved this goal, and like
yeah.
and I want to kind of go into a bit of, because you mentioned this a couple of times, the high functioning, right, of like, because ADHD can really show up in all different kinds of ways, and especially I think for those of us that are a little bit more on the high kind of functioning side, that it's not as, or the inattentive side of where it doesn't show up kind of thing, of where it's this kind of like little man syndrome of like, all right, I got to take on the hardest, toughest kind of thing because I got to prove, especially with all that negative criticism, that I can be just as good as everybody else. I can be as better than everybody else. And and I loved how you talked about too, of recognizing of, you had to create your own kind of systems, but at some point those systems started to fail you as you got further into the career and into certain things. You realize that, okay, hey, this isn't lining up. Like this is and then that extra effort of like, I like too of how you had perfect audits, which is probably a difficult thing to achieve, and and probably in the, the ADHD, like it's got to be perfect or it's not like good enough, where everyone else is probably, yeah, we got 90%, great, we got things to work on. You're like, all right, no, but the amount of cost and energy, right? I think that's a big thing about ADHD that isn't talked about, is the energetic cost that it takes to continue to put into something, and then when you get to that level that you're at, not feeling fulfilled, right? Like it sounded like it was pretty unfulfilling of, all right, I'm putting on the mask or the coat or the clothing of like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be, but it doesn't, like, isn't congruent to who you are. So how did you kind of like recognize that or reconcile those two things?
Well, I'd like to say that I just went home and like realized it one day and just changed my life, because there was a magic mantra that I learned. I my my life had to bottom out several times. And what that looked like for me, like the first instance of that was when my wife was pregnant. Um, and we were like 2 months out from the baby, and I was working all the time, blah blah blah. Um, and I screwed up my foot. As a side note, I also have had a big weight loss journey. And at the time, that journey originated from the way that folks made me feel about my body. So it was actually, at the time, it was like my foot being screwed up and that preventing me from exercising was like a really big deal. And I did not even have time to deal with that because I was working so much. Because, tell me if you've heard this before, I can't find my insurance card because it's somewhere in this pile of unopened mail at my house. And my wife was just like, we're having a baby in 2 months. You have a screwed up foot. You cannot find your insurance card. You like, we need to get some stuff figured out. And I thought that was my like coming to Jesus moment. Like, I gotta prioritize home. I'm gonna just make it happen. Great. I'm gonna try harder. I'm like, that was my first kind of sign of it. And just fast forwarding more and more, I got promoted. Again, I'm high functioning, which is great because you know, I've developed so many relationships. I have had so many opportunities and I've enjoyed so many things as a result. And at the same time, where the double-edged sword is, then I need help. And people are like, what the hell? You don't need help with this. You're so talented. And that's true. And I can still need help. And that's people who don't understand ADHD stuff don't get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
So
think
what
that's
what
even just a human thing too, right? It's like, yeah, no, we could be really good. Like, someone could be something really good at one thing, but still struggle on other things. It's like, oh, if you're really good at this, you must be good at everything. I'm like, no, like, like, and it's recognizing too, and I think especially because of the high functioning part, right? We feel like, all right, we have to, because everyone says we have to be good at this. We got to be good at this. We can't, like, the struggle to ask for help. Do you like? Are you like me? Do you struggle to ask for help?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean literally, I mean, studies show that one of the many things that folks with ADHD really struggle with is exactly as you're saying, asking for help. I cannot tell you how many support groups I've been on where myself or someone with basically the same story, think they're in need of help and will not accept it, will not listen to it. That's why, again, the self-acceptance piece is, um, eh, to me, the self-acceptance, if there was one thing that I could wave a magic wand and give to every single person in the planet, like ADHD or not, it would be self-acceptance. And I don't just mean like, oh, I'm good with myself. I really accept, like, I'm fine with I'm talking about like this kind of self-acceptance of like, I am overweight and I love myself. And of course, there's a boundary of like, we don't want to be unhealthy and, totally out of focus with ourselves. And at the same time, there is just such a powerful societal message of, especially if you have ADHD and, you're neurodivergent, that the true version of you is not okay. And the only way and that's never going to change. The tribe does not like when people act different. That's not something that's in our power to change. We're not going to change that. The part that we can change is the internal part. It's the self-acceptance piece because the tribe doesn't like people who are different, but the tribe is also pretty accepting of folks who are able to lead with their differences and lean into it. And that only happens when it's genuine. It can't be a forced, like what I did for so many years was try harder. This is okay. This is okay. Put a smile on it. Put a smile. Like it has to be a true, like, again, that's why I call it like it has to be a true self-acceptance and not a superficial one, not a you know but to your direct question, I guess my ultimate burnout was I got promoted. I was working in the central office for the school district, and at the time I thought that my burnout was the result of a team member that was on my team, and I was an external hire and she had also tried out for the job. She was the internal person. She'd been there forever. um and she knew this is several years, this is 5 years ago, whatever. This is way before I was diagnosed, but she definitely knew that I had attention issues and she knew I had organizational issues. And she really made it a point to withhold information or make things sticky for me in a way such that I would present myself really badly. And I mean, to say that at the time what that level of stress and dysfunction looked like for me was chain smoking on my way to work. I don't smoke. I would chain smoke and listen to meditations on my way to work because I was convinced that was you just do this, it's gonna be okay. And I spent every lunchtime in my car crying, and trying to. I spent every lunchtime trying to like eat and play fantasy football and cry. And I would take breaks and sit under my desk and cry because I had like my own big office because I'm the big boss and all that stuff. Um, and I mean, of course, all that caught up with me. I was not meeting competencies at my job because I'm just not like showing up for it. Um, and I'm mortified when I'm being told by the HR people like you're not meeting standard, blah blah blah. And like I hadn't been talking to my wife about it at all. I've been This has been going on for a long time, but finally, I'll never forget it. It was January 28th, 2022. I came home and I told her the whole thing that was going on. Um, and then I've switched jobs like 5 times and stuff since then. I don't think, I'm sure some of it's worth going back over, but for the sake of kind of keeping it simple, um, the most I found the most noteworthy ADHD piece of me getting into career development was somebody asked me, they were like, why should anybody listen to you about their career when you can't figure your own stuff out? And it's that just like, on the one hand, I like, without piling on myself, that is a valid, like, that's a really valid question. And on the flip side, I actually think it makes me the best person to talk to about your career because I don't talk to you about this stuff like I haven't been on a million interviews feeling like dog meat. Like, I'm going to talk to you about it from the perspective of like, I've been down in that hole. Here's what actually is going to work for your brain. Like, no nonsense, like, no more like, just applying to jobs online. Just go try, go put yourself out there, go network. Like we're not, no, we're not doing that. Like we're going to do stuff that actually works that I have actually done. And so like feeling like, you know, I remember that question. And at the time I remember I was also just doing really badly in my life. Not feeling like a person who was worth listening to and a person worth being around. And what was nice about the self-acceptance piece, again, coming back to that, is appreciating my uniqueness and seeing it as, no, I'm the perfect person to talk to about your career because there's almost nothing that you can tell me that I will not have an answer for. And I also am anecdotally convinced that it's a little bit of an ADHD thing because I think when people tell me stuff like that, it just makes me be like, "No, I will show you. I will get it done," And yeah, so it's been an all over the place kind of journey. That's why I like honestly, that's why I like talking about ADHD so much because it is this. That's why I like sports. I like storytelling. I like all this stuff so much because I think it is so beautiful and wonderful that we get to talk about this all-encompassing thing of ADHD and this other stuff that is so jagged and horrible and soul-sucking and relationship destroying and life altering. And at the same time, it is also my favorite thing about myself. It is the reason I'm married. It's the reason I have a kid. It's the reason that I'm able to have deep and meaningful relationships and have like big long-term satisfaction in my life. But I don't, the one last thing I do want to add, just about broad ADHD stuff is that I am very anti like ADHD is a superpower. And like I'm also very supportive if that works for you. You're somebody that feels good from that. Everybody's ADHD is different. So if you have something that works for you, you stick with it no matter what, me or anybody else says. Just on my end, I don't like the superpower because I always think of like X-Men or whatever. Are there consequences from Wolverine having adamantium in his body? Sure, but he can put that away and go on with his life and put his claws away and he gets a break from that. You don't get a break from ADHD. I don't drive home from the way that I think. I don't get to leave this state of my mind, and I don't. And when people call it a superpower, I just find it very invalidating especially people who don't have ADHD. I think that's the one that that touches a nerve for me. Um, I just think it's really invalidating of the
The
cost of doing
struggles. Because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like me,
exactly.
it's not a superpower nor is it a curse, right? Because it's like these kind of two extreme ends that I don't like to prescribe on either of like, oh my God, ADHD is the worst thing in my life, and everything is like, everything is the fault of ADHD, or everything great in my life is because of my ADHD and everything. It was like, no, you've been dealt a set of cards, like you've been dealt, talents and gifts and genetics. And one of those genetics, being ADHD. We can't control that we have ADHD, but we can control how we respond to it, how we show up to it, how we handle and deal with the things there. So it's not like I'm, Captain America, or I'm, Venom, like, the Red Skull or some, supervillain. It's like I'm not the worst thing in the world, nor I'm the greatest thing in the world. Like one of my favorite song quotes that I like to use is from Steeler Wheels. I got clowns to the left of me, I go jokers to the right. I'm stuck in the middle with you. And we're always stuck in the middle, right? And this is, I think, was so much of with kind of ADHD folks. And I want to get back to particularly something you mentioned about with your wife there, but see if I can finish my thought because we're going to go all over the place, and but that's okay. Is that we have this tendency to think that either we're the worst thing in the world or we're the best thing in the world. And it's finding the equanimity and balance of recognizing of like, hey, I am both good at certain things and bad at certain things. I struggle with this, I excel at this. And I don't even think that's an ADHD or neurodiverse thing. I think it's a human thing. You look at any other human, like, on the planet, they're going to do well in certain things, struggle in other things, and it's all
If I
recognizing. Yeah.
if I may, I do agree with you. I think that is a a universal human thing. Every human is going to have deficiencies. That's just a fact. Like everybody has stuff that you're not going to be good at. And at the same time, I find a neurotypical person's perception of an ADHD person's struggle with that to be invalidating, for lack of better phrasing, because they're like, I don't think that people in general understand the negative isn't a strong enough word, and distorted isn't a strong enough word. And people with ADHD say, I'm sorry, or a variation of it, apologies or whatever. They say that more than any other type of person. There is a true societal shaming of neurodivergent people in general, and they are not, there is a general lack of awareness. So I do agree there is, everybody's too hard on themselves or gets too high on themselves. That's just, humans. There is a lack of understanding of the depth of how extreme that is for folks with ADHD. And I have really like I one of the reasons I struggled with the diagnosis at first was the first doctor I went to was like, "Oh, you must be bipolar. You're clearly manic." Like I am not like but such is the extremes of the to the untrained person, the extreme mood swings of a person with ADHD does seem manic enough to actually seem bipolar. And I think that is illustrative of just how even medical professionals who don't know ADHD do not understand this stuff. Yeah, and that's been a big part of my journey too. So clearly,
Especially the I'm
clearly
sorry
something
part,
wrong here.
because this was like, because when you were saying that, this was something that I've had to catch myself, particularly in my relationship with my wife, and even in just like so many things of where, like, what it does to you psychologically, because it's constantly saying, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'm fucked up, I fucked up, I fuck, right? Like, that's usually when I'm saying I'm sorry in those kind of ways, it's not a genuine, I'm letting go. It's more of, I'm recognizing I'm a fuck up, and it's just this constant almost cycle of saying I'm a fuck up, I'm a fuck up, and it becomes difficult. I don't know how like it's one of the things that I still work in my relationship, that I struggle with communicating like my feelings of when I'm going through hard stuff. And you kind of mentioned this too. This is why I kind of want to rope back around into it. On that day, you said in January, you said January 28th. It was when you were sitting there and you finally told your wife after months of the buildup. Um, how had like walk me through that kind of process of like, all right, finally getting kind of honest, and like, have you developed tools of where for me to selfishly use of learning how not to, like, I do my journaling and my other things, but like, what are some of the things you do to like, especially when communicating with your partner there, right? Because that's where, especially like as you said, you were like spending majority of your time like under the desk crying or in the car crying, and like trying to divulge away and you're crumbling within, but you feel like you got to still put on the masculine of like, I got to support you. We're going to have a baby soon. And, or we're already had a kid and, I've got to be strong and like, but you also have the emotions as well. So talk me through how you handle and deal with that and communicate that with your partner.
Oh man, gosh, that is such a great question. And just to be candid, that day, January 28th, 2022, I was honest about what was going on with me right then, but I couldn't. One of the most interesting chat GPT, and we'll get into AI stuff later, but one of the most interesting blind spots that it helped me with is that I have not had an intimate relationship before. Even though I had been married for 9 years, and I've been with my wife dating and otherwise for like 12, whatever. We've been together for a long time. We did not have an intimate relationship because you don't have an intimate relationship with others until you have an intimate relationship with yourself. And I did not have an intimate relationship with myself. I had a super
That's a
dishonest.
mic drop moment there because that's a really beautiful thing too. Because when we talk about intimacy, right, most people think intimacy equals sex, but intimacy does not equal sex. Intimacy equals vulnerability. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but that was such a beautiful
Oh,
mic drop moment of like even
yeah, and
after
it's
9 years of like it's true intimacy. So how did you get that? How did you find that place with your
well,
wife?
it definitely didn't happen that night. I mean, to be honest, that night I like drove around extra before I came home. I was so uncomfortable to go home and like and also to be clear, like I my wife's name is Anne. I love Anne more than I like love oxygen. Like I love Anne so much. And like we have like and I'm literally not just saying this, we have an awesome marriage. And I say all that because that is how hard it was for me to talk to somebody that I love that much. So for me to even like start making chips in the iceberg took a really long time. And there was no one thing. Um, if I had to point to the most significant thing, it's AI. And specifically like a couple different, I guess two different aspects. One is I do a daily journal routine. I call it Believe Like Brady, Behave Like David. I'm a big Tom Brady fan, sports. Um, and so literally every day we use frameworks from Pittacus and bullet journaling and meditations by Marcus Aurelius and several other frameworks. And we basically talk about, just what's going on for my day. We do my rocks, which are my most important things. Um, as I bet a bunch of folks know, your rocks are your most important thing. Your pebbles are the like second most important thing. And the sand is like the emails that don't matter type of stuff. And what typically happens, especially if you have ADHD, is you let all the sand, dominate your day rather than the rocks. So we're very strategic about like lining up my rocks and my, you know, hitting the right capacity. Is this the right level of challenge for me? Or is this a day where I just have to suck it up and deal with it? Um, and then we talk about where I'm likely to encounter the most friction, and a plan for that. And then we also talk about how it's going to look for today for me to show up with self-belief. And then at nighttime we talk about when did I not over-explain myself? When did I show up with self-belief? And like the AI stuff was big for me because I needed to talk. I needed to talk, and I didn't even know how much I needed to talk. And at the time, I was not, I also, to be clear, I was also working with a psychiatrist and a therapist, and like I had lots of human help. Um, but I didn't feel like, even with my therapist, like the person I'm literally paying to help me with my problems, I did not feel good to be honest with her. And that's also like my fifth therapist because the other one, I'm chuckling because I'm literally the stereotype. If you've read ADHD 2.0, they discuss a story of a guy who keeps going through therapists and it's not me, or it's not you, doctor. It's me. I'm just incurable. That was me with so many therapists. And at the time, I sincerely did think of myself as a person that is incurable. I thought of myself as a person who will never be able to feel good. And now I realize that that was really like, that was me being a person with low expectations for myself. Um, and so the believe like Brady, behave like David, like doing that. I have a very regimented morning routine. I get up between 3:30 and 4 every morning. I read for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I do my journal routine, and then I exercise. And then, I'm being a dad and going to work and all that stuff. Um, the journal routine and just having that daily accountability was really big. But also when I mentioned I needed to talk, when I first started learning how to use AI and stuff, I'm not being I'm not exaggerating. I maxed out my memory every day. Like my like at the time my thoughts were too complicated for the computer program. And now that it's iterated, it's it now even my feelings are not too much for the computer program. Um, just that daily belief in myself.
Um, about Marcus Aurelius and your meditation practice, right? And the daily routines, right? Because life is lived a day at a time, and kind of building that in there. One of the things that I want to kind of circle back to, because it sounds like from where you've gotten to now, right? And you've mentioned this a couple of times, was the self-acceptance part.
Mm.
So, like, going through all the different kind of therapists that you said you kind of went through, of the like, all right, I'm uncurable, doc. Like, it's, nothing that you can do. And you kind of also mentioned too, when we were talking about, as you were talking about kind of the intimacy of understanding yourself, getting into the AI, of like finally being able to kind of just get everything out and express it. Is that when did the kind of like the self acceptance really start to kind of kick into play, of where David started to love and accept David? Because I know for me that took me like late into my kind of 30s, to kind of get to that point, after like you, a couple of breakdowns and everything else. And so what about for you? When was that kind of like moment? So we talked about kind of our breakdown moment, but that aha of like, I love and accept David.
There wasn't I guess if I had to point one specific moment, although again, big picture, it is, kind of the one day lived at a time and those micro little changes that you're making. I guess the biggest milestone was I did what I refer to as the blind spot chat GPT prompt, which is just where I have the program ask me questions, to clarifying questions, to have it identify for me the blind spot, meaning the thing I'm not noticing or not doing, that would most tremendously positively impact my life. And I was very surprised that it was a lack of self-expression. Um, and now in retrospect, it was because at the time I did not feel like I was a person worth listening to. So literally the plan for me every single day as I drove to work was I posted a video, or I just recorded like a 30-second thing of like, this is something about ADHD, or this is something about me. Like I did, or I would do a story of the day. And then over time that has turned into me. I send an inspirational message every morning to my team at work. Um, literally every day I have an inspirational message, by the way. And yes, I am that guy. Um, the act of having an intentional, um, like active self-expression over time. Um, and there was no single message that changed for me, or, kind of changed my mindset. It was literally the act of doing that every day. And I'm very, like, studies also show this. This isn't just a personal opinion. The way that we talk to ourselves really matters. Like, if you say out loud, well, I don't even like saying it, but I'm a negative thing, I'm a whatever. Like, over time, your body believes that and you become that thing. But if you say out loud, I am a person worth listening to, I am a person worth being around, over time, you will act as such and the world will treat you as such. It's funny because especially in career development and hiring and everything, everybody always thinks that like, oh, I've got to be the perfect candidate, I've got to be the right resume, blah, 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 blah. almost all hiring decisions are emotionally motivated. So like literally saying things like like I can't tell you how many jobs I've gotten by just sharing in the interview things like I've never lost a game of Twister. I've been first in line for Star Wars 3 times and I've been featured on the news 2 of the 3 times. Like literally just use and again, this is where you have to have the self-acceptance because you have to feel good saying that you've never lost a game of Twister. You have to feel good talking about your Star Wars fandom. You have to feel good about that stuff for people to hear it. But when you're able to articulate those things, it's such a powerful tool in your tool bag. It's just so yeah, it was the blind spot um, prompt is what really got me started. But then, it turned into other things from there. It turned into that daily inspirational message, and now it's my lately. I think the thing that's helped me most with my internal foundation has also been my work with I work locally with an executive function coaching company and getting to provide broad business direction and also getting to like work in an area where I not only consider myself an expert, but also it is not hyperbolic for me to say that ADHD and providing guidance and clarity to those who are on that path is my life's work. And that is aside from my wife and my daughter, that is the most important thing to me. And that is not hyperbole. So, to get to 2 years ago, I mean, and this was another burnout, or crap, whatever. I was a person who really did not feel like I was worth the air that I was breathing. And today I'm getting to be on a podcast about my literal favorite subject in the world. Tomorrow I'm going to go and get to provide business strategy on something that really matters to me. And this upcoming Wednesday, I'm going to get to give a presentation about the most important thing to me, to people that really matter. And I get to live an aligned life now because I get to be intentional, because I put in the work to do that. And like to experience that is, and it's not always, I mean, of course, it's not always easy, but to get to experience that day to day, especially in the context of what it's been like to get here, is really powerful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful because especially of when we're like the words we say to each other. Like when I was getting sober, I used to say to myself, like my mantra was, I am worth it and worthwhile. I add value to this world because I had gone back home to I was back in my parents' house getting sober, like a whole long other story there, but I found my old journals from when I was like 9, 10 years old. And in there was pages on pages of nobody loves me, everybody hates me, nobody loves me, everybody hates me. And so you're like so right of like what we speak, right? And one of the things I think it's actually in meditations or because I'm a big stoic philosophy guy, so of like your thoughts color your words or like your words color your thoughts, so recognizing of what you say. The other big one I think is like don't be overheard complaining even to yourself, of like recognizing of what you speak has a big powerful impact and being able
If
to
I
have that intention.
if I may, I actually find that I actually, and I feel like this is an important thing for men to hear, especially like it is, although I do want to stand by the standard of it is important to not call yourself a direct negative thing. It is also really important to validate your feelings. Like I, I just screwed up a meeting and I goofed on the PowerPoint, whatever you just did, it's really invalidating and it just creates this internal war with yourself, which is what I used to do, of like, I'm such a crap. Like this should have happened. This should have happened. This should have happened. And then eventually I turned that into like, no, I shouldn't have negative feelings. That it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. The thing I cared about that didn't work out, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Like and you'll hear a lot of mental health professionals explain it this way or explain this in a variety of ways. But the way I really like is you think of driving in a car with your emotions. And when you have huge emotion of like, oh, I just screwed up this thing at work, or like for me, it would be I just screwed up this relationship. I just cost myself like a person that I really care about. And like, you know, but no, I shouldn't be feeling that way. No, I know I'll make another friend. Oh, force positivity. I'm going to make another friend. Like, no, it's valid. Like, I just lost a friend. I lost somebody. I'm missing out on a ton of relationships that really matter to me, and like and although I will have boundaries with myself and I will not let myself get too upset, it is like vitally important for me to validate myself, and those were important relationships to me. And like I think I guess overall, like the most important thing is I hope that people can hear that like two really contradictory things are often true with ADHD. And I guess with life, but especially with ADHD. And it is really valid for you to have those feelings of loss and have those feelings of whatever. And it's also important to recognize like those are helpful protective feelings. They're trying to help you. That sense of anxiety that you're trying to force through when you're trying to make a new friend, like you've had friendships where you've gotten burned. So it is important, like those feelings are trying to help you. And so the visual I like thinking of is like we're in the car together. Oh, social anxiety. Hello. I see you. You are permitted to drive or to be in the back seat. You are in this car. I cannot kick you out of the car. You are not going to be in the driver's seat. Like my social anxiety will not dictate how I make or do not make friends. And at the same time, there is a very careful balance between like, I will not let social anxiety derail me. I will not recognize this feeling. I do not have this feeling. Like that was the unhealthy space that I was in for a long time. So I think it's really important for folks to hear that both things are true. You can validate those feelings and also not let them drive the steering wheel of your day. And like, and
It's
I
funny. One
wish
of
I
my
had it.
one of my favorite quotes that I think I ripped it from a movie and then I added on to it is emotions are like children. You can't let them drive the car, nor can you stuff them in the trunk. They belong in the back seat, which is exactly what you're saying, right? Is that we can't repress and deny our emotions, but we also can't let them run the show either because they'll run me off the road. So it's accepting the part of me of like for anyone who's watching this, you'll notice that there will probably be a weird little clip thing in there because the internet went off, and there was a brief second as I'm scrambling to figure out, all right, the internet went off. What can I do to solve this and everything else? I'm like, oh fuck, this interview is gonna go off, and like he was at a good point. I'm like this, and like, okay, take a breath. You know, it's solvable. Like you can express those feelings are valid. You have every right to feel frustrated and upset, but it's not going to serve you to let them run the car. It's also not going to serve you to repress them either. You recognize that they play a place, they have a place, and we keep them, we put on their safety belt in the back, put them in the child seat, lock them up, and keep them safe, and recognize that, hey, they have it's a valid response. It's a part of who I am, but it's not the totality of who I am. I am not just my thoughts. I'm not just my emotions. I'm a scheme of multiple things all together. And this is where I like to use awareness as kind of the spotlight above of like, all right, take yourself out of perspective, look at the grander kind of scheme of thing of like, and as you because you've kind of mentioned this a bit too about being a storyteller, right? Um, I think it's a Chris Williamson quote that I'm stealing as well, but I steal great quotes all the time. Life only makes sense in reverse, right? Like when you look back, and so we get to tell what that story is. We get to say of all the ups, downs, and turnarounds that we've gone into our life, we get to create what that narrative means to us on this day. Of like everything that I've gone into my life has now led me into a guest room in Toulouse, France. Like I could, I can create this hero's journey and this story of telling of what I wanna make out of it. And it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It only has to make sense to me because it's my internal and valid experience of what I'm going through. And But I think you also touched on the something as well of recognizing purpose, right? Of like the value of purpose of being a father, of being a husband, and having a career of what of that you know that you want to accomplish. Of like you're like, I've been through the shit. I have been through the struggles. I know what it's like to go to the interviews and like, yeah, you don't have the clean record, but it's because you've gone through it, right? Because you've gone through that gives you that lived experience that so many others don't have that gives you a unique perspective of when handling with people with different learning styles, right? We you talked a little bit about of kind of like of in school there, like I was always a kinesthetic learner. Like I'm a touch, taste, feel it, get me involved, throw it around. Otherwise, if I'm just looking at a chalkboard, like I'm not like if when you were a primary school teacher, I was probably like your worst kid there because I'd be staring out the window the whole entire time, be like, all right, I just want to play something or make sense to me. And when I found cooking, that's what made sense to me because I was able to touch, taste, and feel it. So it's one of those things of finding validation, and as we kind of talked about as well, of the validation of self, of accepting these are all the different parts of me, and I it's no longer repression but expression of the validation and the daily rituals and routines that you talked about as well of starting out and utilizing the tools of AI. So love to get a little bit into as we kind of get to the end here because we've been chatting for longer than we think we have, and I could probably talk to you for a few hours. And man, would I love to get into the Star Wars stuff because I see the posters behind your wall. I saw the I saw the mug as well, but we won't
Oh
get
yeah.
into that. That's a whole other conversation.
We'll
But
have to do another one.
yeah, we'll have to do another one. We'll do a sci-fi Star Wars or like how like how being a Jedi is like being a Buddha or something. I don't know. We could do some allegory
I'm
to
sure there would be a place in ADHD culture for that.
absolutely. So, how have you utilized, you've mentioned this a little bit, how have you utilized AI, not just for personal life, but also for to help with your business stuff, um,
Hmm.
and to utilize it as a productive tool versus like, because my wife, she's an artist, so she has a love-hate relationship with AI of where it's like in some ways can be kind of detrimental, other ways can be really positive. So how do you use it in the positive sense of like what are the tools that you found, especially for the ADHD brain, to capitalize upon? Because I use it too of like I'm like, hey, all right, help me create an SEO like package of all the things because me like I hate writing. Like writing is the bane of my existence, something I've always struggled with typing. So it's like, all right, if I can just spew it out, talk into it, and then you type it out, awesome. Like I'll take the results. So how do you utilize it in your personal life and also in your work life as a career coach?
I mean, to be honest, it's kind of one of the same because AI is really what helps me. And now I'm in a really good place where I don't need this as much, but AI got me to the point where I could function during my day and got me to a point where I can actually use my knowledge that I already have and was already pretty good at stuff. I just couldn't function doing it. So the way that I really use it, like pretty much every day, I keep a chat GPT conversation going of just act as my ADHD coach, executive function coach. These are the things that I'm working on right now. Stand by and I will let you know if I need help. And for me, sometimes I'm writing something and I'll just want to brain dump and hey, just clean this up, help me clean this up and edit, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, what I really find the most helpful is just like I am sitting at work and not doing anything right now, and I just cannot get going. Here are the three things I need to do. You need to coach me through doing them. Like, I don't need as much help. And this is just me. I don't need as much help kind of doing the things. I need the help of like a body double. And for me, the non-judgmental, like always present body doubling kind of AI works for me really well. If there was one thing that I could have everyone with ADHD really understand about AI, it's that the most powerful thing it can really do for you is let you offload your executive function load because there is too much going on in your brain at all times. And what that can really look like is I need help making this presentation. And now, normally, what an ADHD person would do is, it is due on such and such date. It must cover X, Y, and Z. And you try to sit there and think through exhaustively what all the details are. The easier thing to do, where the executive function offload comes in, is you are my business strategist. You are an expert in, I'm just making something up. We're going to do a presentation about Star Wars and what would have made the Jedi Council work. You are an expert in all things Star Wars. You are an expert in creating simulations of how things could have worked out differently. Assemble a board of experts who will convene a meeting and run internal simulations and have internal discussions until they're as confident as possible. Ask me clarifying questions to learn everything that you need to learn from me, and then ask questions one at a time. And now you hear a little bit of my executive dysfunction, just to be honest. But that's where it's so valuable. Just offload all your thoughts. And if you find that too hard, literally just say, I need to make a presentation. Ask me clarifying questions to learn everything you need to know to help me. Just start with that. Like that, because the key thing that we're doing is we're saying, I have a bunch of ideas. Ask me short questions and help me sort them out. And just the daily ability to do that, like I've heard the phrase of like having ADHD is like trying to hold a bunch of marbles in your hands. Um, I feel like effectively telling the computer, ask me the person, what you, the computer, need to know to help me, that or some sort of variation of that command is so powerful because it's transferring those marbles to the computer. You hold those marbles. You are the computer. You are going to help me and give me the couple marbles that I need to be focused on right now. And you have to, and as with anything, you have to kind of be willing to work with it a little bit. Like, is are there costs to using AI, and like, can it make you lazier? Can it, are you likely to get into copy paste mode? Absolutely. I mean, that's why AI, just like with anything, is something that needs to be a part of what you're doing and not the whole thing of what you're doing. I do want to, the last thing I really do want to emphasize for folks with ADHD and AI is there is a true value of it's always there. Like it's not as good as a real therapist and talking to a person, of course, but the value of like, I don't need to set up an appointment. I don't need to do anything. I can go to my computer, act as my therapist, act as my ADHD coach. I am having big feelings about X. Help me process and feel 10% better. And does it work perfectly every time? Of course not. But like, think about even half the times that you feel really crummy. If even half of the times you feel really crummy, if you could get 20% feeling better, even 10% feeling better from something that's just always there, I wish that more people saw it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because some of the things I like to do is just like, and it just allows you to clearly kind of see what all those thoughts are of where you can kind of see it written out of where I like to do the big kind of brain dumps of like, I've just got all these things here. All right, I'm going to throw it all here. Like, okay, well, you can legitimately handle this, this, and this. Adding on this is going to be, and it's just, okay, then I can make a decision from there. And I think it is it's utilizing it as a tool versus as a supplement or a change of like, all right, you become uh like I want to say addicted isn't the right word, but it becomes such a part of you that you can't function without it. It's a tool to help you recognize, and once again, I think comes back to feel like the theme of a lot of this conversation has been around its self-acceptance, right? Understanding and accepting, all right, hey, here are all my thoughts, and understanding of like, okay, hey, I need to offload some of this executive function. And all right, here are the things I can handle. All right, what how can I do to break it down into the I always remember the movie What About Bob from the 90s. Like baby steps to this, baby steps to this, little bites, little bites, little bites, little bites. Um, so I think that is such a valuable use of understanding how to utilize the technology because it's not going to go anywhere, right? Like we just got to be honest, it's not going to go anywhere. So it's all right, how can I utilize the best tools at my disposal? Um, as we kind of wrap up here, because I want to get a little bit into the coaching side there, particularly when you do you have any advice for anyone in that kind of career, especially for an ADHD looking like maybe if they're trying to switch careers or moving through career of like major pitfalls or advice you give them to help them through that journey? Like for me, like I'm gone from being a chef to now being a coach. I can still keep the C. I just, change the other letters around a little bit into a coach and a community leader. So, and that's been an interesting transition for me of like changing identity to meet this new kind of thing as the business tries to grow and everything else. So, what advice do you have for those with ADHD as they go through their career journey and recognizing that they may go through switches in careers and things like that, and how to work with their ADHD in their career.
And it's funny because I'm going to come back to self-acceptance. It really starts with knowing, and this is not universally true, but this is true for a lot of folks. And especially if you're struggling in your career, I'm willing to bet this is true. You are going to be a person who tries a bunch of different things. And again, that is not universally true. I know plenty of folks with ADHD who also stay in their job for, quite a while. The majority of folks don't. And as much as we might want to fight against that, that gravity problem, that thing that we're just not going to be able to change, we're not going to be able to change that. So the most powerful tool I can give folks, if I could give them, is the power of self-acceptance. The power of, hey, this job isn't working for me. That's okay. I've got lots of options. Specifically, the things I like for folks with ADHD, I actually like AI as a career tool, because you can have it use specific frameworks for you, because it will know them. But I really like for folks with ADHD that they are not just hunting for jobs. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a deep dive on the internet and find jobs, or I'm going to do this. Like the job hunting industry, and yes, it is an industry, is literally, it is a setup, it is mined with distractions for everyone. So imagine what that's going to do to somebody with ADHD. I mean, who's already prone to being distracted. You're never going to get anywhere meaningful with an unstructured job search because all the typical websites are embedded with things that distract you and just keep you on the site. So to be specific, what I like, the number one framework, even though it's a little bit old, the number one framework I really like for ADHD job seekers is called the 2-Hour Job Search by Steve Dalton. And what I think is so powerful about it, and it's also a great tool for everybody in general, but what's so powerful about it for ADHD brains is its real, tangible structure. Spend 10 minutes on Indeed researching X, Y, and Z jobs. Do not click on other buttons. Do not do, like, he is very, very specific. And now pretty much everybody I work with who has ADHD does not, literally follow all of those rules. And that's, of course, to be expected. But just the fact that you're like having a program and following it at like 70%, 60%, that is like you doing that every day, even if you're not religiously perfectly doing it and working the steps, that like that is literally a surefire recipe to success. Like you will be successful in your job search if you are doing a structured program. And I recommend 2-Hour Job Search. But if you're doing any sort of structured job program, your rate of success is going to be 100% if you actually keep at it. The thing is, most people are going to get, and this is where you also, I guess I will add in one other thing. Because most people get discouraged. Not most people, pretty much everybody gets discouraged, and that's super valid. So I guess the other corollary to the self-acceptance is as you're job searching, that if you and you have ADHD, that cannot be a solo journey. That has to be a And frankly, your ADHD should not be a solo journey. I am very passionate after my journey, um, and 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 I don't need to know the listeners and folks who are going to be watching this, but if you have ADHD and you're struggling, I sincerely want you to know that even though I may never meet you and all that stuff, I love you to death. I'm so glad you are a person on this planet and you are a person who's worth being here. And I cannot tell you how many job seekers I work with ADHD or similar neurodivergent. And to say they are down on their lives is the ultimate understatement. Your emotional health during a job search is like embedded in that self-acceptance has to be your emotional health. Like that is like, and as a hiring, well, I guess a former hiring manager right now, I mean, I'll tell you the single number one biggest metric for success in a job interview is the competence you convey. Because most decisions in a job interview are made not on the content of what you're saying, but how you're saying it.
It's
So
all in that
you've
emotional response of like understanding the understanding body language, understanding like your own self-confidence. Because if you go into the interview and be like, I would like a job, please, versus, you know what, I would be really suited for this job. Can I have a job? I'm okay. Like it's the it's a simple kind of the motion can like that like do you feel confident in yourself of like, all right, can I go and accomplish this? And it can be hard too, because especially as you said too, of where you feel that discouragement of having to deal with the RSD of rejection after rejection, or nothing kind of aligning into purpose of what you want to do, but you're like, all right, I gotta do something, and it's finding the right kind of thing, but it's recognizing, as you said, right? I've hired a few people as a head chef. It's all right. The ones that
and
usually get the job are the confident ones, or the ones that you're like they transfer that belief of like, yes, they can accomplish and do the thing. And it was like you said, it goes back to the self acceptance of belief of like, all right, believe that you can actually accomplishment, even if you don't know how you're going to do it. Like, commit first, figure it out later.
well, my question to folks in that situation is, is this actually an aligned job for you, or are you just, desperate? The one last thing I do really want to make clear is how important it is that people, as I was saying, implied in the self-acceptance, how honest people are about their emotional health around a job search. Because without being overly morbid, I believe it's the number three demographic for suicide in the United States is white males age 65 plus. And what that really speaks to is the high value that society places on work. And when you are not going to work with the rest of the tribe like everybody else is, there is a true emotional toll of you not being in that rhythm of the world. And that is not to be under like it is not a everybody during a job search is like, I gotta work hard, I gotta stay and apply to 5 jobs. Honestly, the people who are successful are the people who apply to a job and then go out and have a nice time throwing the frisbee with the dog or whatever. Like your emotional health is as important as the job as your resume. I would say, to be candid, both as a career development person and as a former hiring manager, your mental health is more important than the appearance of your resume. And I am not saying that hyperbolically.
And I like that. I like that. I think that's actually a great way to kind of end it, because I think emotional health and the mental health, especially like it seems like in the capitalistic kind of society of like, all right, we need workers. You got to work, work, work. You like, it doesn't feel like big corporations care about you or anything else. It's like, okay, you got to start with you of like caring for yourself, because at the end of the day, you put your head on your pillow every night. No one else puts their head on your pillow. I always take when my wife tries to take my pillow, I take it away. But no, it's a bad joke. David, I'll pop your link so people can find you if they're interested in working with you in career coaching and things like that. They can find you on LinkedIn. That is correct.
Yes, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. Please look me up there. If you are neurodivergent and you are struggling with job search stuff, send me a message. We'll get you squared away. Um, yeah, I'd love to connect.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, David, for this fantastic conversation. Don't forget to come check out the League of Spiritual Gentlemen and Men's ADHD support group. We are here to support you. Don't forget to check out, follow David Adams over on LinkedIn. And with that, guys, I wish everyone a great, if not better, day.